Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, with my Week 14 2015 NFL predictions. Well, this week, I'm on the verge of having another successful week. Once again, I am standing at 10-5 through the first 15 games of Week 13. Again, tonight, I have the Washington Redskins at home, beating the Dallas Cowboys. So just a little reminder there for everybody who didn't watch the video last week. And now overall for the year, I am 117 and 73 overall. That equals about 61.6% right. So again, I'm getting back and I'm getting closer to the goal that I usually get every year, which is about 60, the low 60s, 63, 64%. What a crazy Week 13 in the NFL. So many big games, so many, crazy endings and crazy just stats that happen all in the league. Like the extra points. Yesterday, there were 9 missed extra points in one weekend. To put that in perspective, all of last year, there were only 8 missed extra points the entire year. So, I really like this extra point rule, because I think if this rate continues to go up, and even if they want to make it even more exciting, a little bit more pressure, I would even move it back 5 more yards to better make it a 38-yard shot. I think more teams will be going for 2, like the Steelers have, who last night broke the record for the most successful 2-point conversions in NFL history, so kudos to them. But I think that you are going to see more teams go for 2, and I think it's going to make the game a lot more exciting, and definitely it could be a huge momentum swing, depending on what happens. But that was really big that I saw that. The upset of the year happened yesterday when the 4-7 Eagles beat the 10-1 New England Patriots. I couldn't believe that happened. It was an incredible overall display by the Eagles. And to put this in perspective about how rare of a loss this is, here are a few numbers that I found out. In that game, that was the first time since 1993 that the Patriots had given up 35 unanswered points. The last time that happened was against the Jets back in 93 when they lost 45-0. Then, on top of that, that was the first time since September 29th, 1985 that the Patriots had given up 3 non-offensive touchdowns. You can remember they gave up a pick six, a block punt, and a punt return by Sproles. In Tom Brady's last 67 home games, that was only the 5th time that he had lost. And it's only the 5th time in his career he's lost back-to-back games overall. And here's my favorite stat. Since 2001, Bill Belichick's Patriots were 98-0 when having a lead of 8 points or more in a game. They were 98-0. I believe they were 41-0 when they had a 14-point lead, which they had in the beginning of the game. Even though, again, when you watch that pooch kick, which I thought was the downfall, I didn't quite understand that. They should have just kicked it deep and just had the Eagles keep moving, because at that point it was all the Patriots' momentum. But kudos to the Eagles, though. I know I've bashed a lot of Chip Kelly, and I've bashed a lot on Sam Bradford, even though I do believe Sam Bradford only deserves 20% of the credit, because he did throw for a grand total of 120 yards. And the 2 touchdown passes, even though they were good, they were about 8 yards away, which was average the whole game. But remember, 60% of the points he scored were by his defense and special teams. So, please, nobody, don't tell me that Sam Bradford's the future of this team, or it's like, oh, this is the Sam Bradford that we all knew he can do. He really didn't have to do anything, and if you had a team that was playing that well on special teams and defense, I think any quarterback could have done what Sam Bradford did. But kudos to him. I'll give him 20%. But congrats for that game. What a game in San Francisco. Wow. Blaine Gabbert hit a walk-off. And I can't believe I just said that, but that's right. Blaine Gabbert hit a 71-yard touchdown pass to Torrey Smith. And that's his 2nd one of the year. And to put that in perspective, he's won about 40% of what he had going into his career right then. He had won double the games he had won in the last 3 years, which I think is incredible. But kudos to him, and what a devastating loss for the Chicago Bears, even though, again, I heard a lot of people, they were getting on Robbie Gould. He's allowed to miss a kick. I understand. It was a chip shot, and Robbie Gould is one of the most automatic kickers in the league. But, let him miss one. It's not... Hey, Jay Cutler had his opportunities. Jay Cutler threw a pick 6 to Jimmy Ward. So don't put all the blame on Gold. He's allowed to miss one kick in his life. He's not perfect. Nobody really is. But what a big win for the Niners. It has to build a lot of confidence for him. And for the Bears, I think that just knocked them out of the playoffs. It's unbelievable that they continue to find ways when I pick them that they lose, and whenever I don't pick them, they win. So, let me see here. A few other games here before I get into my picks. Well, the Jacksonville-Tennessee game, kudos to Tennessee for snapping the 11-game home losing streak they had, the longest in the NFL this year. And kudos to Marcus Mariota. He had himself a game. He had 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He did have that pick. And he also had 117 yards rush, including the 3rd longest run by a quarterback ever in NFL history with the 87-yard touchdown run. And it is the longest run for a quarterback, for anybody this year. So Russell Wilson could have the 2nd longest with a 53-yard run, but it got negated by a penalty. So kudos to the Titans for that. Jacksonville, you need to fire your kicker because out of the 9 missed extra points, your kicker accounted for a 1/3 of it. And that's the 2nd time this year where your kickers had 3 chances to either tie the game and win the game, and he screwed up every time. So you need to cut Jason Myers and bring back Josh Scobie. Why not? And then finally, my last quick little note here, I'm going to congratulate the Green Bay Packers for getting a huge Thursday night win off a Hail Mary. I can't believe the Lions gave that up, but it was incredibly stupid to see how far back the Lions had pushed back. And to me, it's just something where that was all Jim Caldwell's fault. You can't do that. You can't tell everybody that you were expecting a lateral when Aaron Rodgers has one of the best arms in the league, and he can throw it 60 yards. And I think, again, that pretty much summed up Detroit's existence. And I do want to ask everybody out there from last week, here's a great question. What loss was more painful? The Browns losing to my Ravens the way they did, or the Lions losing to the Packers the way they did? So that'd be great. So, but that's all my thoughts on the quick thoughts about that. Time for my picks. This Thursday, when the 8-4 Minnesota Vikings go to the 10-2 Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals. And then on Sunday, when the 6-6 Atlanta Falcons go to the 12-0 Carolina Panthers, I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers. When the 6-6 Buffalo Bills go to the 5-7 Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. When the 7-5 Seattle Seahawks go to the 4-8 Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks. When the 7-5 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 10-2 Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. When the 6-6 or 5-7 Washington Redskins go to the 5-7 Chicago Bears, I'm going to take the Washington Redskins. When the 4-8 San Francisco 49ers go to the 2-10 Cleveland Browns, I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers. When the 6-6 Indianapolis Colts go to the 4-8 Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts. When the 3-9 San Diego Chargers go to the 7-5 Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs. When the 3-9 Tennessee Titans go to the 7-5 New York Jets, I'm going to take the New York Jets. When the 4-8 Detroit Lions go to the 4-8 St. Louis Rams, I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. When the 4-8 New Orleans Saints go to the 6-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When the 5-7 Oakland Raiders go to the 10-2 Denver Broncos, I'm going to take the Denver Broncos. When the 4-8 or 3-9 Dallas Cowboys go to the 8-4 Green Bay Packers, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. And then in the Sunday night game, when the 10-2 New England Patriots go to the 6-6 Houston Texans, I'm going to take the New England Patriots. And then in the Monday night game, when the 5-7 New York Giants go to the 5-7 Miami Dolphins, I'm going to take the New York Giants. Alright, time for my thoughts on each game. Minnesota at Arizona is going to be a good game. Minnesota is an up-and-coming team that's had a lot of good moments this year. Unfortunately, yesterday, it wasn't one of them. They got blown out 38-7. They were held to 125 yards of total offense, which, for Seattle, that was the lowest amount of yardage of offense that they had given up since Week 14 of 2005. So obviously Minnesota was outmatched the entire game. Russell Wilson had 3 touchdowns. Thomas Rawls had a 100-yard game. And I'm just looking at this Vikings team, and I'm looking at Arizona, and I'm literally seeing almost a similar type of matchup that the Vikings are facing. They're playing the number one offense in points per game and yards in the Arizona Cardinals. They have won 6 straight. Their last loss, of course, coming against Pittsburgh back in Week 6. And I look at this game and just say that, again, Arizona even has more weapons. They have much better offensive weapons that can spread out the Vikings defense. Andre Ellington has a foot injury, which is big, and Chris Johnson's out indefinitely. And they do have David Johnson, who's had a pretty decent year for a third-round pick. He's done really well in receiving and running and kick returning. So I do think that he can definitely be a good asset. And also, it's just something where Teddy Bridgewater is now 6-1 this year when he throws for under 200 yards, and the Vikings are 7-0 when Adrian Peterson runs for over 120 yards. Well, yesterday he only had 8 carries for 18 yards, and the Cardinals are the 4th best running defense, only giving up 98.6 yards per game. So to me, this is just an obvious mismatch of talent in offense and defense. The Cardinals have a strong enough defense to shut down the very weak Minnesota offense compared to them, because they got shut out by the Seahawks yesterday. The only touchdown they got was from a kick return. And I just look at Minnesota and say that even though they've looked really good, and they do have some games that they can win at the end of the year, I just don't believe that they're up at the Arizona, Seattle, Carolina type level. I'm sorry, it's tough. But I'm going to take the Cardinals here just because this is going to be at their place. Minnesota's coming off a really tough home loss, and they got to shape up real quick. I think Zimmer, they're going to be motivated. They want to prove to everybody they're not flukes. But I think Arizona, or their schedule was the reason why they got the victories, not because of their skill. But I just don't see any way that the Cardinals don't have a great home game against a team that's coming off a really bad butt kicking from their other NFC West rivals. So that's why I'm going to take the Cardinals to beat the Vikings. Atlanta at Carolina. Wow, Atlanta has done a really bad job over the last several weeks. They've lost now 5 straight games after starting out 5-0. And they've won 1 of their last 6 games. They've lost 5 straight, and that win again was against Zach Mettenberger and the Tennessee-led Titans. So I actually believe Mariota was in the game. I think the Titans could have won that game. Matt Ryan's now thrown an interception in 5 of his last 6 games, and they're taking on a Panther team who are firing on all cylinders. To me, I know there's a lot of people out there with Cam Newton and Tom Brady with the MVP debate. With now Tom Brady having 2 losses on his resume, even though, again, he has had no talent to work with, even less talent than Cam has, just in wide receiver perspective, maybe, or equal, but definitely on the offensive line and the defense. But he still has 2 losses, and Cam Newton over his last 4 games has played like an MVP candidate. 67.2% completion percentage, 977 yards, 11 touchdowns to 1 interception. And I just think, again, if they can keep running the table, and again, they're the 9th team in NFL history to start 12-0. They have the best winning streak ever in the history of the NFC. 6 of those other 8 teams have made it to the Super Bowl, and 4 of them won it. But when I look at this game, Carolina just is too talented for this reeling Falcon team to play against. And it just seems like Atlanta, like I said, they are 1-5 when they score less than 22 points in a game. Carolina's defense has only given up 20.2 points per game the entire year. And I look at Carolina and just say that they are finding ways to win. And it's almost like you're looking at 2 mirror images right now. Carolina is finding ways to win, and Atlanta's finding ways to lose. Especially when you go up a 20-yard run on a 3rd and 19 to Jameis Winston. That's really bad. Again, can Atlanta put up a fight? Yeah, they can. It's a division rival. And Atlanta still has talent, I thought, on the offensive side. They do have defensive playmakers. They can give Carolina a run for their money. But when you have a Carolina team that's won 16 straight games, you have Cam Newton playing this well, I just don't see a way that Atlanta can win this game. And the sad thing is, Atlanta gets to play them in just 2 weeks. back in Atlanta. So this is going to be possibly two really bad, tough games for this Falcon team to deal with, and I believe they will lose them both. But I know that they're going to lose this game at home. So again, that's why I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers to beat the Atlanta Falcons. Buffalo at Philadelphia. Buffalo had a really good game against the Houston Texans. For a Houston Texans team that going into the game had only given up 2 offensive touchdowns in their last 4 games, they gave up 3 of those yesterday, and they scored 30 points on them. And Tyrod Taylor had had a really good game. He had 3 overall touchdowns, 2 in the air, 1 on the ground. Charles Clay, Sammy Watkins, both had monster games. And I think this Buffalo team, they feel motivated. And again, this is only their only home game in the next 6 games. And I know they're playing an Eagle team that's coming off the hugest or the biggest high of the year for them. They just beat the New England Patriots for the first time under Belichick, and I said all the stuff about the Patriots, how rare it was to lose like that in the beginning of the video. But to me, I see a very similar situation. Okay? I remember back before this losing streak started. Let's say it is going into week 14 now. Week 13, week 12, week 9. The Philadelphia Eagles in overtime, they get the ball first. They play Jordan Matthews. They get it to Jordan Matthews, and they win the game 33-27, and that was Sam Bradford's signature clutch moment so far of the year, and maybe in his career. Again, I thought Sam Bradford, he made some good throws, but he probably only gets about 20% of the credit. But they played an AFC East team the next week, which was the Dolphins, and they lost. At home. What's happening now? Oh, that's right, the Philadelphia Eagles are coming off the upset of the year. And they're going back home to play a Bills team with LaShawn McCoy on it, mind you. He's motivated. And I wonder what's going to happen. I think Philadelphia is in for a letdown. You have such a big game against the Patriots. It took so many, non-offensive things to happen. Even though I do want to question Chip Kelly's vision of money. I understand that DeMarco got benched for performance, but that's really bad that he gave $42 million for a guy that's just sitting there. So, good job, Philly. But I just feel like that when you have a guy like Tom Brady who's 38 and he's not very mobile, this is a completely different quarterback that they are facing in Tyrod Taylor. He has a Cam Newton type of skill set. I'm not saying he's Cam Newton, but he has a Cam Newton type of skill set that the Eagles struggled with against, in Carolina. This Bills defense, it has underachieved. So definitely if Bradford can show some of that mobility that he showed against New England, he can make some throws, he can make some plays. But there's just a part of me saying in this game that the Philadelphia Eagles, after having such a high, will end up blowing another game like they did against the Dolphins and showing that this Eagle team can't be consistent and they can't string games together. Again, it should be a really good game. I think LaShawn McCoy and that defense, that's going to be a great match to watch. And boy, is Shady going to be motivated to stick it to Chip Kelly for, getting him out of town. And Philadelphia, they have life now. They're back in the NFC East race, amazingly. But, to me, it's that Buffalo is a completely different team. And Buffalo's been through the ups and downs. And they know how to play, the NFC East, pretty well. And I think they know they can play this Eagle team pretty well as well. And that's what I'm going to take. It should be a close game, but I'm going to take Buffalo because it's Shady coming back. He'll be motivated. And Tyrod's a completely different enigma for them than what Tom Brady is. So that's why I'm going to take Buffalo to beat Philadelphia. Cincinnati over Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh got a massive win over the Indianapolis Colts. 45-10. What a game that was. That was an unbelievable route that they performed on the Colts. Even though that game had some NFL history itself, ironically with the Steelers, that was the first time that there were 3 turnovers in the first 2 minutes of the game. The last time it happened was, ironically, Big Ben's first start back in 2004. But kudos to the Steelers. That was a much-needed win and a much-needed boost of confidence when after you had lost to Seattle the way they did last week, 39-30. While Cincinnati, on the other hand, they just continue to dominate Cleveland over the last 3 games. They have, let me do 61-9. They have outscored the Cleveland Browns 98-13 in the last 3 games against them. So obviously, Austin Davis did not do anything. Nobody's surprised. The Bengals just had a field day with them, and I think that they did their job and they did what they were supposed to do. But this is a big game, for the Bengals and the Steelers. This is a big game for the Steelers to see if they can get some revenge for what happened back in Pittsburgh earlier in the year, where they lost 16-10 after Big Ben, his first game back from his first injury, threw 2 interceptions, in back-to-back drives to end the game, 3 overall. And for Cincinnati, if they win this game, they clinch the AFC North for the second time in 3 years, which is incredibly impressive. And I think they are going to do it because Cincinnati is 18-3-1 in their last 22 home games. So they obviously have known, they are obviously able to keep their home turf very well. And also, I think they're going to be motivated. Last year in Cincinnati, the Bengals lost to the Steelers 42-21. That was Martavius Bryant's coming out party, and they just dominated from end to end. So when I look at this game, you have a motivated Pittsburgh team that's coming off a huge high, and you have a Bengal team that's routed 2 opponents that they should have routed. So, and it's a division game. Would I be surprised if Pittsburgh wins? Absolutely not. This is a big-time game for the Bengals to continue their role, and they're holding on to the number 1 seed now due to New England losing. And to me, I just feel that even though Antonio Brown, who's having a monster year, he's second in the league in yards and receptions, I just feel that the Bengals have a good enough pass rush to get to Big Ben. Andy Dalton has won, his last, few games, and he knows how to play the Steelers really well. And there's just a part of me going with the Steelers, with how up and down their defense has been. I don't have any confidence that they can outshoot, or I'll put it this way. Andy Dalton will be able to outshoot Big Ben Roethlisberger in this game. Okay, I just think, again, he'll be able to make one more play to Green or Sanu. Tyler Eifert, he was out yesterday of a neck injury. If he's out, that'll be huge. That'll definitely hurt my chances, but I'm still going to take them if he's healthy or not. But I look at this game and just say that Cincinnati, if they want to show, because again, obviously, this is a 1 o'clock game, and everybody could say, well, it's a 1 o'clock game. They win all their 1 o'clock and 4:20 games. They lose all their primetime games. Andy Dalton is 4-13 in primetime football anyway. But this is just a big game where the Bengals need to show that they are better than the entire AFC North. They've swept the division so far. And I think, again, if they can win this game, that'll basically prove to everybody that this Bengals team, I think, has a very legitimate shot to win its first playoff game in the last 20 years. It will be a competitive game, and I'm excited to watch it. It's one of the games I'm most looking forward to watch. But I'm going to take the Bengals here just because I'm going to take that home field advantage and that motivation. And I just believe with the Steelers, with all their ups and downs, with all the injuries they've had to suffer, and just the way that the Bengals played them last time, I believe now with the home field advantage they can do the same thing and get a very close win over the Steelers. So that's why I'm going to take the Bengals to beat the Steelers. The Redskins over the Bears. Wow, this was a tough game to pick. Washington is winless on the road this year. They are 0-5, and Kirk Cousins on the road is way worse than he is at home. I remember last week I said at home he completes about 76% of his passes. He's thrown for about 1,400 yards. He has 9 touchdowns to no interceptions. Kirk Cousins on the road this year has 61.9% completion percentage, 1,155 yards, 5 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. But at the same time, the Bears are pathetic at home themselves. They are 1-5 at home after losing to the Niners. And that win basically came after Robbie Gould was able to make a kick. Ironically, he couldn't make the kick yesterday. But there's just a part of me that, and it's nothing against Blaine Gabbert, but I do believe that if you lose to Blaine Gabbert, that's a really bad sign. And I just believe that the Redskins, with all the talent that they have a good enough offense to challenge the Bears' defense, and they have a good enough defense to hold Matt Forte and Langford to a modest game. So they're not going to be very effective, I believe. And I just believe that Kirk Cousins and Jay Cutler, I believe Kirk Cousins can make, or I'll put it this way, I think Cousins will make one less mistake than Jay Cutler will. Right now, Cutler hasn't really had any, real weapons to work with. Cousins, he's had his weapons to work with. But I just have a better feeling about Washington right now. They have a chance to win back-to-back games this year for the first time all year, which I think will be huge for their momentum. Excuse me. And I'm just looking at this Bears team, and I don't trust their defense, especially their deep ball defense. When you give up a long ball like that to Torrey Smith for 71 yards, Deshaun Jackson can do the same exact thing. Also, I look at it this way. When I look at the Washington, Kirk Cousins is, a bit athletic, so he can definitely make plays like Blaine Gabbert did. Blaine Gabbert had a 43-yard touchdown run to tie the game. So, to me, this is an awkward game because the Cousins could be horrible, on the road. Which he probably will be. Cutler might be horrible at home. Which he can be. But there's just a part of me going, I'm going to take Kirk Cousins and his team because right now they are playing for something. They are playing for the NFC East, where the Bears, I think they're just playing to play. They're playing for pride and they're playing for wins. So it should be a competitive game, but I think it's going to be a game where, this is going to be a bigger loss for the Redskins than for the Bears. Because if the Bears lose, they're just going to, go, oh, okay, we were more competitive. We'll take that as a moral victory and blah, blah, blah. But that's going to take the Washington Redskins to beat the Chicago Bears. San Francisco over Cleveland, my lord. Oh, this is the pathetic game of the week, the Toilet Bowl. I don't think anybody cares about these two teams right now. And I literally picked this game because of San Francisco. Just because of Blaine Gabbert winning his 2 games. Blaine Gabbert has won just as many games as the Browns have this year. They've looked incredibly pathetic for most of the year. Johnny Manziel, he could come back. I believe he should come back. Austin Davis really did nothing to wow me or say give him another chance. And I just trust the Niners' offense and defense. They have enough of a defense, and they've been a lot more competitive and a lot more entertaining and trustworthy to watch than the Browns have been. Could the Browns win this game? The Browns could get something up their butt. Especially if Manziel can make some plays and they can win this game. But I think with Johnny having to deal with that Niner defense, really not having any incentive to play, not really having the coach's blessing or the coach's confidence to say after this year, oh, Johnny, you're going to get the starting job next year. I believe the Niners, they just have a better confidence and a better feeling about them than I have with the Browns right now. And also, the Niners have double the wins the Browns have. So, sorry, Cleveland fans, that you're on the verge of having the number 1 overall pick again and having to get another quarterback. But I just think, again, at this point, you should just hope for that and hope the Niners can beat you just so you can get to that number 1 pick. Because you definitely need a quarterback to run this team, even though, unfortunately, that'll be the 22nd or 23rd quarterback in this franchise's history since 1999. So, obviously, they need to find a quarterback soon because you need to have a franchise quarterback in any franchise to be successful. But, again, I'm going to take the Niners to beat the Browns just because I've liked what the Niners seen. And the Niners beat the Bears. They beat the Falcons. And they have 2 other wins. They beat the Vikings. And they beat the Ravens. Something the Browns did, but the Browns couldn't do it on the road. So, or at home. So, that's going to take the Niners to beat the Browns. Indy over Jacksonville. Indy, you know what? I'm going to eat some crow here. Matt Hasselbeck had a really bad game. A Matt Hasselbeck game that I am not proud of. I really can't defend him. And I will say that Andrew Luck probably would have played a better game than Matt Hasselbeck would have. And shout out to King Poetic. There's my crow there for that. So, and I know he watches my videos because he's part of the NFL YouTube prognosticators. So, there's my crow. Matt Hasselbeck had a horrible game. The worst game of the year so far. And I can't defend anything he did yesterday. Even though I still believe the Colts would have lost, but Andrew Luck definitely would have made the game a lot more competitive. And but again, Indy's playing the AFC South once again. Indy is 19-2 against the AFC South since 2012, and they are on the verge of sweeping the AFC South for the third consecutive year. And Jacksonville's been a tough, situation. They had such an interesting game, and I do want to give two shout-outs to two very good, two very decent to good Jacksonville players. Shout out to Blake Bortles for breaking David Garrard's franchise record of passing touchdowns with 27, and kudos to Allen Robinson of the Jaguars for having the first 1,000-yard season for the Jags since Jimmy Smith did it in 2005. So kudos to those two Jags. But again, I'm going to take Indy here just because this is the AFC South. I'm going to go with that record. Matt Hasselbeck had a great game against them back in week 6. He had a great game against them. Jacksonville, the last time they were at home, they gave up 31 points to the Chargers. I believe they give up 31 points, or they give up the same amount of points to Hasselbeck in this offense. And just with Jacksonville over the last couple weeks, I've put my confidence in them, and they have let me down tremendously. Even though, again, I think the Tennessee game bites a little bit more than the Jacksonville game, because if you look at the final score, if 3 extra points were made by their kicker, they would have had a tie game. But I digress. Even though, like I said earlier, I do believe they should fire him. But I'm going to take Indy here. Indy's a decent team, and they can beat their own division. And Jacksonville, even though, again, they've shown some promise, they're still the Jaguars, and they're still a very bad franchise. I think that Bradley should go, but I'm going to give Blake Bortles this. Blake Bortles does deserve another year as the quarterback. He's shown a good amount of improvement that I would keep him. But Bradley, I would not, just because he has not been that good. 3 straight losing seasons, not in my book. So that's what I'm going to take the Colts to beat the Jaguars. San Diego at Kansas City. San Diego, 2 of their last 3 home games. Ladies and gentlemen, they've scored a grand total of 3 points. That's a pathetic offensive showing. I know Phillip Rivers has not, had no offensive line help. No weapons, but still, you can't just score 3 points against, those defenses. Even though, again, they did have a couple fumbles in the Denver game yesterday. He threw a pick 6, which the Broncos have known to do this entire year. But this is a San Diego team that's very woeful and very disappointing for what everybody's expectations were. And I do believe this is the last year for the Chargers in San Diego until they go to Los Angeles. And they are playing a Chief team right now that nobody wants to play. They have won 6 straight games, which is the second longest active winning streak in the NFL, behind the Carolina Panthers. Alex Smith has now gone 303 attempts without throwing an interception, which spans 9 games, and is the 4th longest streak in NFL history. So kudos to Alex Smith there. And also, I'm going to take Kansas City because they are playing phenomenal football. They are getting turnovers at a much higher rate. They're playing with a great sense of passing and running. Alex Smith is making more plays than I ever expected him to make, during this run. And they're just a hot team right now. And also, Kansas City is going for something rare that they haven't done in a long time. Kansas City is going for a 2-year, back-to-back year season sweep of the Chargers. The last time that the Chiefs did that to the Chargers, you have to go back to the 1992 and 1993 seasons when the Chiefs swept the Chargers in back-to-back years. So, to me, I look at this game and say, San Diego is going into a place that they have had a hard time going into. Last year, they lost 17-3 with the backup quarterback, Chase Daniel. Dontrell Inman now has a neck injury, and he'll probably be out. So there goes another guy that Phillip Rivers just lost. And this is just San Diego's running into a buzzsaw they just ran into a couple weeks ago that they do not want to be in. They do not want to be in Kansas City right now playing this team that's rolled off 6 straight wins. And I do believe Kansas City will make the playoffs. So kudos to them, and kudos to Andy Reid for improving this team. Now the big thing is, can he beat Indianapolis next week? Or in the playoffs? Because right now, that's how it looked. KC at Indy. Boy, what a game that was a couple years ago. And I think that this game coming up would be a lot different. But that's why I'm going to take the Chiefs to beat the San Diego Chargers. The Jets over the Titans. Kudos, once again, to the Tennessee Titans for stopping their 11-game home losing streak, longest in the NFL. But they are going against a New York Jet team that beat them last year, 16-11. And also, it's something tough that the Tennessee Titans are trying to do. Tennessee has gone 29 straight games without winning back-to-back games. The Jets over the last couple weeks have played really good football. When the Jets beat the Giants yesterday, that was the first time since 1993 that the Jets had beat the Giants in the Battle of New York. The two quarterbacks in that game, Esiason over Sims. So that's how old it was since the Jets. That's how long it's been since the Jets were actually able to beat the Giants. But I look at this Jets team. Ryan Fitzpatrick, the last time he played the Titans, he had 6 touchdowns on him. So he obviously, and with the weapons he has, he definitely can do that again. Tennessee, the Jets have a good enough secondary, I believe. If Revis can come back, that'll be big. They also didn't have Marcus Williams. If those two guys can come back, Revis can clear concussion protocol, and Williams can get back healthy. I believe that this Jets defense can shut down this Titans receiving core. And I believe Fitzpatrick can have another great game. And then Tennessee also, they don't really have that great of a run defense. They've given up over 100 yards in most of their games. And Chris Ivory has shown this year that he can put up that 100-yard a clip game. And I just feel, again, that the Jets, they're playing for something. The Jets are playing for a wild card spot. I believe they will get it. If my predictions all come true. If the Steelers beat the Bengals, then I might have to give it to the Steelers. But I'm going to take the Jets here. Just too much firepower on the offense and just too good of a defense. They're too good of a front seven against a very porous offensive line in Tennessee that I don't think the Titans can handle. So that's why I'm going to take the Jets to beat the Titans. The Lions over the Rams. The Lions just continue to have horrible nightmares against the Packers. What a game that was. What a Hail Mary. What a, terrible way to lose. Calvin Johnson, though, he had this hilarious vine of him literally just dying on the ground after Rodgers threw that Hail Mary. And I guess here's the thing. And everybody wants to talk about the face mask that Devin Taylor had on Rodgers. In the instant replay, I totally agree that is a debatable call. But if you watch it in real time, which the refs had to do, I would have thrown the flag at the same time. Because the way it looked like he, and I know his thumb grazed it, so that, or it might not have. But it definitely, it was near it. But just the way it looked, I thought the flag was right. But then at the same time, Lions fans, you do have to realize you can't give up the Hail Mary. You still had a chance. It wasn't like, Rodgers, had, they only got, 15 yards from the 25, so, or from the, 24, so, 61 yards. Yeah, so, and you gave that up. That's on the Lions defense right there. That's not on the Packers or the refs. That was on your defense. But I'm going to take you guys because I feel that you've played much better in the last 4 games than what the Rams have. This Rams team is an absolute embarrassment to the city of St. Louis. And here's how bad it is. The Rams offense has scored 4 touchdowns, 4 TDs, mind you, 4 in their last 5 games. Let me repeat that. They have played more games than they have scored offensive touchdowns. That's absolutely pathetic. Todd Gurley now looks like an afterthought. After we thought he was the Rookie of the Year, we're all thinking, well, where's Todd Gurley? And again, I don't think it's definitely not him. That's the offensive line and just the defense not being able to do anything. And people thought, yeah, like Jeff Fisher's specialty was defense? Well, let's see, 31, 27, 58 points in the last 2 games. Again, I think Fisher should be fired, but I digress. But also, this is a rarity for the Rams. Since the Rams have moved back to St. Louis, this is only the second time in this, in this head-to-head series that the Rams are hosting the game. The Rams are actually 1-0 when they have the Lions at home. That was October 1st, 2006, which the Rams won 34-27. So the Rams do have that on their side, but I'm going to take the Lions here just because the Lions have played way better than the Rams have, and I trust their offense way more right now under Jim Bob Cooter than I do with Jeff Fisher, under his offense. And to me, again, can the Rams defense and the Lions defense, I think both defensive lines are about the same. The secondaries, Glover Quinn went down for the Lions, which is big. But I think that the Lions secondary, they can make some more bigger plays, and they've shown that they've had a lot more fire over the last few weeks than this Rams team has. Sorry, Rams fans. It's time to get Jeff Fisher out of there. So that's when I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to beat the St. Louis Rams. The Bucs over the Saints. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have won 6 games this year. That's more wins than they've combined over the last 2 years. And they are trying to do something, I think, since 2007, and I don't remember the last time since, I think, maybe ever in their franchise, maybe since 2003, that they are trying to sweep both the Saints and the Falcons in the same year. I know Tampa's trying to sweep the Saints for the first time since 2007. And I'm just going to take them just because New Orleans right now can't get anything. New Orleans has won, I believe, 1 road game this year, and that was against Indy. But they almost blew that. And Tampa already beat them in New Orleans in week 2, which everybody thought was an upset. And I just like this Tampa team. Tampa's played, overall over the last several weeks, really good football. They've been competitive. And this Saints team, they still have the worst points per game defense in the league. They gave up 41 to the Panthers. And I don't trust the Saints team right now. This Bucs team, they're playing for, but Lovey's playing for his job. Lovey's playing for respect. And I think he's going to be able to get it over the last several games because I think the Bucs should be able to win. And the Bucs, if they can sneak into that wild card spot if other crazy stuff happens. I wouldn't be surprised, and it's not the first time that, it has happened. But I'm going to take the Bucs in this game because they just have more to play for, and they've just looked better as a whole team offensively and defensively than the Saints have. So that's why I'm going to take the Bucs to beat the Saints. Denver over Oakland. Poor Oakland fans. Janikowski misses a field goal and an extra point. I can't remember the last time that happened. And actually, I wouldn't mind anybody knowing that watches. When was the last time Janikowski and Gold missed field goals on the same, or missed kicks on the same day? Unbelievable, But they are playing, the Brock Osweiler-led Broncos. Brock's done a good job this year. 3-0. Again, I still think that, he deserves to keep the starting job. Even though I know his numbers, yesterday, they were game manager-esque. He threw for about 150 and a touchdown and a pick. Or a couple touchdowns and a pick. Not bad. Or, no, a touchdown and a pick. Not bad, but not great. But still, I think, again, only 2 turnovers in 3 games. I don't remember. But I believe Peyton had 5 in the first 3 games of the year. So he's cut that in half. So I'm going to give Denver that credit right there, for playing really good. And also, Oakland and Derek Carr, he seems to always throw a really bad pick at the worst time. He's got to improve on that. They were tied. They were up 20-14. And after D Ford comes in and strips Carr, Malga picks it off and he runs it back to the 5. It ends that. And then when the Raiders are trying to drive back down the field again, he throws a pick 6 to the former Raider, Tyven Branch. And it was very similar to what the Broncos did in Oakland when Carr was driving down the field to get the game-winning field goal or touchdown, and he throws a pick 6 to Chris Harris, and that ends the game there. So, of course, I'm going to take the Broncos. They've looked, very effective on offense, even though I do wish C.J. Anderson, Vernon Davis, and Danny Trevathan healthy. I think all 3 of them left the game. Anderson and Davis and Trevathan had concussions, so obviously they might be out for a couple weeks. But also, I'm going to take Denver. This is my stat for this game. Denver has won, the last 7 straight games against the Oakland Raiders. The last time the Oakland Raiders beat the Denver Broncos in Denver was week 1 of the 2011 season. So that's why I'm going to take the Broncos to beat the Raiders. Oh, I just realized I completely missed the Seattle-Baltimore game. Seattle over Baltimore. You know, as a Ravens fan, I'm just in a state of just pure hope and just pure disgust. You know, we are the first team in NFL history to play all 12 games that were decided by 8 points or less. And here's how bad it is. The Ravens have lost every one of their 8 games by 4.25 points. The 3 wins we have are by 3.75 points. So just think about that. Every game up to this year, we were half a point away from either winning it or losing it. And right now, we could be 12-0. We could be like the Carolina Panthers. We could be like the Detroit Lions right now. We could be on the verge, which I do believe, we could be 0-16. But we'll never know. But it's just something where, like, there's a part of me going, I'm really upset. Because it's like, you really can't blame the injuries. You really can't blame all the depleted talent. Because we played everybody tough. Every single team. From the lowly Cleveland Browns, the worst team in the league, to one of the best teams in the league in Arizona and Denver. We played all of them tough. But, it's just something where we're not going to be able to get it. And I do believe we're going to lose out the rest of the year. And that's going to start this weekend against Seattle, who's coming off. They've won 5 out of 6 games. They now have 2 quality wins on their resume, beating Pittsburgh by the way they did and beating Minnesota the way they did, 38-7. They shut out the Vikings offense, which you could say maybe isn't that hard to do, but still, that's incredibly impressive. And also, Seattle wants to do something that Baltimore has not allowed them to do, which is win at home. Baltimore is 2-0 against them all time in Baltimore. That's going to end this Sunday. This upcoming Sunday. Matt Schaub, who's now thrown a pick 6 in his last 3 straight games, and 6 of his last 8 games overall. One of those games was against the Seattle Seahawks. And to me, I look at it and say that this Seattle team just is on a whole other level right now compared to the Ravens, and they're playing for something, and they're playing like the old Seattle team that we've seen over the last 2 years. And that's what scares me about this game. But that's why I'm going to take the Seahawks to beat the Ravens. Alright, then. The Packers over the Cowboys. This was fairly easy. The Cowboys have lost their last 9 straight games without Tony Romo, dating back to 2013, including 7 this year without him. The Green Bay Packers have won 4 straight against the Cowboys overall. The last time the Cowboys were actually able to beat the Packers in Lambeau, I think it was Aaron Rodgers' 3rd start, September 21st, 2008. And it's just something where, again, Dallas, they could be still playing for something, especially if they beat the Redskins tonight. This game can mean a lot for the Cowboys. And I think, again, they're going to put up a fight. They're going to try to, they have McFadden, they have that offensive line, and they have the motivation from the divisional round last year with the that was a catch phenomenon that happened. And again, I thought it wasn't. But that's just my opinion, so I don't want any Cowboy fans jumping on me. But I think this Packers team, they're motivated. They got a huge confidence-building win, and they're playing a Dallas team right now, which is basically playing with a bunch of backup. They're playing with their backup quarterback. They have had a lot of demoralizing defeats. And I just think it's going to continue. This Packers team just has too much talent, even with the drops. But they just gained a huge confidence builder by beating the Lions, and I think they can do the same thing against the Cowboys. So that's when I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Patriots over Texans. The Houston Texans put up a good fight against the Bills. Unfortunately, it did not end in a victory, and they're playing a Patriot team that is upset. I gave you all the stats about how rare it was to lose to the Texans, or to lose at home and lose back-to-back games. Here is how rare it is for the Patriots to lose 3 games in a row. The Patriots are trying to avoid a 3-game losing skid since weeks 4 through 6 of the 2002 season, which was, I think, their longest active losing streak under Bill Belichick ever when they lost 4 straight games. They should have Rob Gronkowski back, which is huge. And I think that will definitely help them. But to me, I look at this game and say this. If Tom Brady can ever have, any kind of motivation, this is very similar to what happened back in weeks 3 and 4 of the season, after they got blown out and got embarrassed by the Chiefs. And I think it was Miami. Miami and Kansas City last year. They went on a tear. And I think this New England team, they have enough guts and enough motivation. And also Belichick knows O'Brien pretty well. And I think that they'll be able to shut down this Houston team. Sorry, guys, a little frog in my throat. So again, this is going to be the Sunday night game. I'm really excited about it, but I'm going to take the Patriots here just because they're the Patriots. And if Brady just has anything to say about it, he can win this game. So that's when we take the Patriots over the Texans. And finally, the Giants over the Dolphins. All right, guys. The Giants over the Dolphins. I'm going to take the Giants. Miami hasn't won back-to-back games since weeks 6 and 7 of this year. And the Giants are on their 3rd straight season with a losing streak of 3+ games. And the Giants are playing for something. They're playing for the NFC East. And I just feel against this Dolphins team, which looked pathetic offensively, I think the Giants defense can make one more play to stop the Dolphins to win this game. Where Tannehill yesterday, sorry guys, man, I'm just having a real bad cough in my throat. Tannehill had his lowest yards in a win since his rookie season. So that's it. Sorry guys for the ending there. My throat's kind of starting to hurt a little bit. So yeah. So those are my thoughts and my picks for all this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. Shout out to guys like Gio Knows, Billy B, Half Moon's Picks, King Poetic, The Football Guru, Philadelphia, Andrew Warren, Edwin Lerner, Mason Cole, Sean Ryan, Oren Gremberg, Gabriel, I don't know your last name, buddy, sorry. Gabriel, King Poetic, I might have said him already. Bridgewater's Finest, Hatbox, TJ Harmon, all those guys. Check out their picks. They are all great NFL YouTube prognosticators like myself. And that's it. So good luck to all players, teams, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.